Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Okay, let's dive right into this because today we're exploring a brilliant classic piece of literature that, honestly, it's going to feel shockingly relevant to your life right now. We're looking at Stephen Leacock's famous short story, With the Photographer. Now, Leacock wrote this way back in the early 1900s. But as we unpack this explainer today, you're going to see that he was actually predicting a massive cultural shift, a total shift in how we view ourselves, how we view beauty, and how we interact with images. It's a fantastic, funny, and deeply profound story, and I am so excited to break it down with you.
So let me ask you, would you let someone erase your identity for a perfect photo? I want you to really chew on that for a second. Today we live in this crazy era of digital beauty filters, Photoshop, and one-tap editing apps. We can literally smooth our skin, shrink our noses, and brighten our eyes before we even think about posting a selfie online. We do it so casually, right? But what happens when the pursuit of absolute physical perfection just strips away the very things that make you, well, you? This isn't just some modern dilemma. This is the exact conflict at the heart of our story today. And this was long before smartphones were even a thought.
Section 1. Setting the Scene, the Vintage Studio. To really understand this clash, we've got to picture those intimidating, formal photography studios of the early 1900s. Picture the soft yellow lighting, the distinct smell of developing chemicals in the air, heavy wooden furniture, and this massive antique box camera just resting on a tripod. Back then, getting your photograph taken wasn't just a quick snap on a phone. It was a big, serious event. And this brilliantly illustrates the central conflict of our narrative. We've got our customer on one side, natural, unassuming, just wanting a genuine representation of his face. And then, contrasting him, is the photographer. This guy isn't just a dude with a camera. He views himself as this high art perfectionist. He's clinical, he's serious, and he's completely obsessed with rigid standards of beauty. When these two meet, it is not a collaboration. It instantly turns into this super uncomfortable power dynamic, where the natural human form is about to be treated like a highly flawed piece of clay.
Section 2, the rising action, the absurd critique.
So as the session kicks off, the photographer doesn't just cheerfully say cheese, and take the photo. No. He steps back, he squints, he aggressively tilts the customer's head, he starts studying the customer's face with this intensely critical, almost medical detachment. The tension in the room just skyrockets. You can imagine the poor customer sitting there, frozen in place, while this supposed expert silently evaluates every single millimeter of his face. And then the photographer opens his mouth and just starts rattling off the flaws. He criticizes the ears, says they're too far out. He critiques the nose, the mouth, the eyes, the hair, the neck. He even criticizes the man's natural facial expression. The comedic escalation here is just brilliant. Imagine paying someone for a portrait and they proceed to systematically insult literally every single feature on your head. The list is so overwhelmingly long that it becomes hilarious, but it also points to a much darker reality about this relentless, exhausting pursuit of absolute physical perfection. Unsurprisingly, as the photographer just drones on and on about how physically inadequate his subject is, the customer becomes deeply confused and incredibly uncomfortable. He starts second-guessing himself. And, this is a very real psychological reaction. When an authority figure, in this case, the professional photographer, tells you that your natural state is somehow wrong or unsuitable for the camera, it completely erodes your confidence. The customer is sitting there essentially being told that his actual given face is a problem that desperately needs to be solved.
Section 3. Editing away reality.
After finally snapping the photograph, the photographer excitedly outlines his artistic process for the darkroom. He talks about retouching the negative, smoothing out the lines, adjusting the shape of the eyes, completely reconstructing the nose. He's treating the photograph not as a record of reality, but as a rough draft that he intends to completely rewrite. Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark visual contrast between reality and the heavily retouched version. The photographer presents a final product that is, technically speaking, flawless. The skin is smooth, the features are perfectly symmetrical, the lighting is divine, but there is a massive problem here. It looks absolutely nothing like the customer. The natural quirks, the slight asymmetries, those little lines of character that actually make a face recognizable and human, they've all been meticulously erased. The photographer successfully created a masterpiece of artificial perfection, but he totally destroyed the truth in the process.
Section 4. The climax. The customer strikes back.
So, the customer looks at this beautifully edited, completely unrecognizable photograph of a stranger. And he finally snaps. The politeness drops completely. This quiet, unassuming man we met at the beginning of the story has been pushed to his absolute limit by this arrogant pursuit of fake perfection. He's endured the insults, he's sat through the uncomfortable posing, and now he is staring at the ultimate disrespect, the literal erasure of his own identity. He delivers the most powerful realization of the story, arguing, if every feature is going to be changed, the photograph will no longer represent me. This right here is the dramatic peak of the explainer today. The customer realizes that a portrait isn't about being perfectly symmetrical or flawlessly beautiful. A portrait is supposed to be a testament to your existence. It's supposed to represent you. If you edit away all your unique distinguishing traits, you aren't fixing a photo, you're erasing a person. Having made his point, the customer flat out refuses the photograph. He doesn't argue further, he simply reclaims his agency. He realizes that the photographer's validation is completely worthless because it's based on a total fabrication. So he turns around, rejects the artificial image, and walks out of the studio with his head held high. He leaves with his dignity completely intact, choosing to embrace his real, flawed self over some flawless, fabricated illusion.
Section 5. The Resolution and Lessons.
So the crucial point is what we take away from this century-old encounter. Why does the story resonate so deeply with us today? Well, it's because human nature hasn't changed, even if our technology has. We're still grappling with the exact same themes of vanity, identity, and the intense pressure to conform to unrealistic aesthetic standards. Let's walk through these key lessons, because these takeaways are incredibly powerful for us right now. First up, accept yourself. Your unique features are what make you who you are. Second, don't chase impossible perfection. It's a losing game that only leads to dissatisfaction, just like it did in that vintage studio. Third, photography should capture reality, not erase identity. Whether you're using a 1900s box camera or the newest smartphone, a photo should celebrate the real you, not a heavily filtered avatar. And finally, respect individuality. We need to push back against those clinical, perfectionist voices, whether they're coming from an arrogant photographer, societal pressure, or just a social media algorithm that tell us we need to be fixed.
I want to leave you with this final, incredibly powerful thought. Be yourself. That is your greatest beauty. Stephen Leacock wrote a hilarious satire, but underneath all that comedy is a desperate plea for authenticity. The next time you take a photo or the next time you're tempted to swipe on a filter that changes the shape of your face, I want you to remember the customer in the studio. Remember the incredible value of your natural, unfiltered self. Ask yourself, are you capturing your identity or are you erasing it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and above all, keep being your authentic selves.